Hello everyone, welcome to the House Committee on Finance. We are live at 9 a.m. on January 6th, 2026 for the purposes of budget briefings. Kind of our standard pre-session, try to learn about what's going on, see what departments need to have success. I think we'll get right into it. So if we want to open up with Deher, please proceed.
Aloha and Happy New Year, Chair Todd, Vice Chair Takanochi, and members of the Committee on Finance. My name is Rana Hashimoto, and I'm the Director of the Department of Human Resources Development. Before I proceed with our budget requests, I wanted to introduce the DHER team members that are here with me today. You guys could just raise your hands when I call you out. Well, first of all, let me introduce our Deputy, Brian Ferruto. And I also have here Travis Palmyra, who is our newly appointed Labor Relations Division Administrator. I also have Jennifer Mori-Kilby from our Employee Claims Division, Raynell Yee, who heads up our Employee Relations Division, Patty Taketa, who's our lead recruiter, Mark Tagashi, our Administrative Services Officer, Joy Inouye, who heads our Compensation Branch, Doreen Kuroda, who oversees our benefits team, Patty McDonald, who's our training manager, Malia De Leon, who's our classification branch manager, and Erin Connor Jerome, my executive specialist, and the author of our annual vacancy report. Before I talk about our budget requests, I just wanted to take a few moments to talk about some of our accomplishments and over the past year. First of all, I know you folks are always interested in the vacancy report. We submitted that to the legislature at the end of December, and it's posted on our website. So please take a look at that if you have time. The good news is that we added 300 more civil servants over the last fiscal year. So not only were we able to replace the 1,169 employees who retired or resigned from state service, but we added an additional nearly 300. But unfortunately, because we also added 485 new positions to our overall count, our vacancy rate, the percentage, actually remained flat at 24%. Had we not added those 485, it would have gone down to 22%. So we're making progress, not as quickly or as much as we would like, but I think what you'll see is that the efforts that our recruitment team is putting into place are having an effect, a positive effect on the vacancies. And it's really attributed to the fact that we are doing a lot more marketing. We have a dedicated team to doing recruitment and outreach and connecting with the community and talking about the benefits of state employment. In FY25, we saw more interest in state jobs than we've ever seen in recent memory. In fact, the number of applications soared to over 41,000. So our staffing team, reviewed 41,000+ applications for civil service jobs over the last year. That's a tremendous increase over last year. I think we were closer to 35,000. And about 7,700 of those were directly in response to the Operation Hire Hawaii initiative that Governor Green signed the emergency proclamation in February of 2025 to address the issues happening at the federal level and loss of funds and those impacted by job loss. This past year, we also made some changes policy-wise to incentivize recruitment, one of which was to allow soon-to-be college graduates to apply for civil service jobs 3 months prior to their graduation, so that we could start, working with them, having them interview before they actually graduate, and so that's been a positive effect as well. I think most importantly, our staffing team has made tremendous progress ensuring that that recruitments are posted timely. We've tried to, at every point that the DHERD is involved, we've tried to make our processes faster and more responsive to the department so that we can hopefully increase our recruitment efforts. We are also making tremendous progress in screening more quickly. I think that's been a real hang up for DHERD over the last many years, and most of that was due to a lack of staffing and just the increase in overall applications that were responsible for screening. We see more applications and not as much staff, and so it just compounded the issue. But just most recently, I think we're right now, as of today, we're finishing up our November applications, and most of the applications we're reviewing are in December, and we got a whole bunch in January. We posted recruitments for our conservation and resource officers and Department of Land and Natural Resources, and got over 700 applications in the matter of hours. So it's a lot of ebb and flow in recruitment, but our team is doing their best to stay on top of it and to be responsive. And really, I think the message I wanted to convey is the resources that you provided to DHERD over the last couple of years, not only in terms of positions. We got 7 positions to help with the recruitment screening last year. We also got funds to help with the marketing, and all of that is, I believe, money well spent. We've been able to contract with LinkedIn, we use NeoGov as our onboarding platform, so that's the software that applicants use to submit an application. And one of the features that we've contracted just recently, this last fall, is to subscribe to their feature called Attract. And it's very similar to LinkedIn, where we can communicate directly with applicants who have a profile in NeoGov. So NeoGov is software that's used by many government jurisdictions. So it's specific to municipal, state, county government jobs. And so we know that those are individuals who are focused and interested in working for government, and we can reach out and communicate with them and tell them about jobs in the state of Hawaii. And that's been, our team is undergoing training right now this week. We have somebody from NeoGov here on island helping them get up to speed on that software, and it's really exciting. I think it'll have really good results. A couple of other points I just wanted to mention in terms of our own vacancy rate. 3 years ago, when I sat before this committee, took over as DHERD director, we had 90 positions, but 30 of those were vacant. So we were a team of 60, and that was scary, I'll tell you for sure. But today, actually I checked yesterday, and we are a team of 94 as of yesterday, and our vacancy rate is 12. We have 12 vacancies. So tremendous progress, and that's counting all the additional positions that we've received over the last few years. So I'm incredibly proud of that. I'm incredibly proud of the team behind me who's made recruiting and filling our positions a priority. I think it shows in the numbers. We still have a few recruitment challenges, but we're gonna work through those. All of our positions are under recruitment. We don't have any position that we're not planning to fill or not intending to service. Finally, last year the legislature appropriated $1.75 million for DHERD to hire a consultant to work on reviewing our the entire structure of our civil service system, including classification, compensation, the minimum qualification requirements, job titles, even providing us recommendations for tech solutions. So I'm happy to report that we have gone almost entirely through the procurement process. We've selected a vendor, and we're just now working on the contract. So we're making good progress, and we appreciate your support in that regard as well. So let me get on to we have 2 budget requests for this year. And these are repeats from last year. We had requested these 2 items last year, but they're a little bit different. We've scaled them back. We understand that resources are tight, and so we've come back again with 2 requests. The first of which is in HRD 102, and we're asking for 3 FTE and $306,144 per year to fund 3 positions in our employee staffing division. And these positions are specific for doing the recruitment outreach that I've been talking about. So we have one team that does basically our screening of applications, but we have another small but mighty team of individuals who to date it's been an ARPA project. So we got a little bit of ARPA monies back in 2023 to stand up a project to help with the marketing and outreach for recruitment purposes. So it's basically to institutionalize that project team. Right now, it's a project team of 5 positions. We're asking for 3. We understand that the finances are tight coming into this next year, but I think that's kind of the bare minimum that we would need to be successful. These are all the folks who put on the job fairs and attend the job fairs and coordinate with the departments. I think if any one department were charged with doing what this team does, it wouldn't happen. They just simply don't have the bandwidth and the capacity to put on these big events like DHERD is able to do, and then leverage our kind of knowledge and be able to provide that resource. We just invite them, they show up. Sometimes there's a small fee, sometimes not, but the power is in leveraging our ability to put on those kinds of events. And not only that, it's a large part of this team's work is doing that outreach to, say, UH Manoa and to Chaminade, to the community colleges, and working directly with DOE. So we take that sort of work off the department's plate and help coordinate it from a statewide perspective. So I think this project team is incredibly important, and I would hate to see us lose momentum by not being able to continue it in the next year. The ARPA project, the funds sunset this year, so the funds will be no more come September. So we have just a very short window, even if these are authorized. That's why we put it in last year. We were hoping that we could have a smooth transition. We're cutting it really, really close this year if the positions end in September and we're not able to continue them. That would be a huge problem for us. Secondly is our second request is also for HRD 102. We're asking for 2 FTE and $217,372 to again operationalize and institutionalize 2 positions which are also ARPA funded. So our initial ARPA project was three separate kind of projects under one umbrella. One was the recruitment team, one was a small temporary team to help with our workers' comp division. That team will sunset and that will not be a problem. But the third component was these 2 positions in our personnel transactions office. And this office, essentially, they manage all of our human resources information system. So basically, I think you folks might be familiar with the term PeopleSoft. It's basically our software that keeps track of the electronic personnel records for every state employee. And it interfaces very closely with finance, with budget, with every electronic system that touches on people and positions. And so its success is exceedingly important to the state. And so we asked for these 2 positions so that, first of all, we could make sure that we're leveraging the use of our technology. So PeopleSoft has been around for a really long time. The state has been using it, I think, since around maybe 1996 or thereabouts. We have a lot of history, we have a lot of data points, but we don't necessarily use all the functionality well. And so this project team is really to, with their knowledge, we have an exceptional manager of that team who used to be a PeopleSoft consultant, knows the software in and out, and is really helping us kind of bridge the gap in terms of the technology and the functionality and to leverage that use. So we really want to be able to keep these 2 positions, especially thinking long term, thinking the next 5 and 10 years where we know we're going to be coming up on EFS, the Enterprise Financial System. Obviously, it's exceedingly important that our data talks with the financial system. I think obviously personnel is one of the most expensive parts of state government, and to not have that ability for the 2 systems to talk seamlessly would be a huge detriment to us. And just in terms of not only after the EFS, but then we'll probably be looking at some kind of HR system, whether it's PeopleSoft or something else. Usually software has a cycle, and we have to go back out and see if we're using the best software. And then just an ERP, if we do some kind of enterprise resource platform, these positions would be critical in making sure that we're successful, that the HR component is successful. So that's essentially what we're asking for, and I'm here and my team's here and available to answer any questions you might have about our budget or anything else to your credit.
Sure, before we get to members, we have a few kind of boilerplate questions. We just want to ask departments how they're dealing with existing restrictions. And then I think you've already touched in your testimony on, there's not much federal fund impact that you're anticipating, correct?
Yeah, we do not have any federal funds outside of those ARPA funds, but those are already basically
Okay.
in our bank.
And then to your knowledge, any emergency appropriations for your department that you
We
think
don't
are on the way?
anticipate any.
Okay.
We haven't had any for the last couple of years. We've been able to use ARPA funds. Prior to my coming to DHERD, occasionally we would have to seek for workers' comp, but we've been able to manage workers' comp within our appropriation.
Okay, so the existing restrictions that are in place, you guys have been able to navigate okay, and
We think we're gonna be okay.
members, questions for the department?
I have a question
Marie
here.
Call?
Thank you. Thanks for being here. I was looking at your statement here that says, moreover, the state's total benefits package, once a significant draw, is not as competitive as it once was because other employers have improved their own offerings. Can you expand on that?
Well, I think I've been in the state government for a long time, since the early '90s, and back then people were a state job was coveted, right? Because of the benefits, the leave, the retirement benefits, the health benefits, and I think other employers learned that in order for them to be competitive, they need to be more like the state. So I think in private sector, you see more, maybe not as many holidays, but certainly you see that there are comparable benefits when it comes to leaves and some of the other things. They may not have pension plans, but they have 401ks, which in some cases, prospective employees like that because they don't have to worry about vesting after 5 or 10 years and they can take it with them. So there are drawbacks. I'm not saying that our benefits aren't desirable or meet our employees' needs. It's just that other employers have learned from our benefits package and are now more competitive.
Do you think that the medical insurance premium might be a barrier? Like what is the premium now for an employee? Is it 60-40 or?
So there are it's actually very affordable depending upon which plan you select. So actually that part doesn't fall under DHERD, but I can just speak from my own experience that we actually have 3 different options. The 75-25 plan where employees pay about 75% is covered, 25% is not. That one, if you're a single employee, it costs about $50 a month. So pretty affordable in my opinion.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, when I left government, I was paying like close to $1,000 for a family plan.
Yes.
And if that's the case, that's that much money out of your payroll, so I could see that as being a big barrier for taking a government job.
When Governor Green first came into office, he actually increased the amount for the 75-25 plan. So he authorized the state to actually pay an additional amount. So I think we're paying about 95% of that premium. So I believe it's very affordable for if you're a single. Obviously, if you have a family, it is more expensive, but I still believe it's around $175 two-party plan.
So if you have a spouse that has a private industry job that pays maybe 100% of the medical, you as the government employee will not pay any medical, right? So you get the benefit of your whole paycheck, whereas the person that doesn't have a medical gets that cut, right? So that's where I can see that there's a problem that maybe we need to start thinking about.
Right.
Thank you.
Rep. Temple?
Director and team, thank you for being here today. My question is about like remote work. In general, what is the state's outlook on remote, hybrid, and in person? Do you guys have like the percentage and the pros and cons to that, and how are you guys moving forward with that?
So back in I want to say, let me back up. In 2022, before I came to DHERD, the former DHERD director, along with our team, negotiated new guidelines and a new agreement related to remote work, and it went into effect early in 2023. So just right after I became director. And since that time, we've had good success. I don't think we are hearing the same concerns that we did maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago in terms of the challenges around remote work. Right now, we've been living with the current agreement in place, and I think our departments like it. It basically allows them to do either hybrid or completely remote. The only time we don't allow remote work is when somebody and a new employee is on probation. So once they've passed probation, they've been accustomed to the job, and probation is usually 6 months. After that time, it's really up to the department. They have the flexibility to decide when remote work it makes sense for the operations and the type of work that the employee is asked to do. Because obviously for some jobs, remote work is not an option. Those that need to be in the office, or they're servicing clients, or providing direct services, I think you'll find from DOE, probably not appropriate for them in most cases. But a lot of our departments who do spend a lot of time on the computer and the office have found that remote work is a good tool to incentivize employees to come work for the state if they can offer that. Even if it's not right away, after you pass probation, we can make that available. My own team, we have about a dozen employees who remote work on a hybrid basis. So they're in the office 3 days a week, and they can remote work up to 2 days a week.
Are you able to give like a general percentage of the state workers that are in person and hybrid and remote?
I believe that's one of the tables that WAM asked for.
Mm.
So we could dive into each of departments. I don't think we don't necessarily have a way of tracking that in any of our systems right now, but I believe each department was asked to report on their remote workers as part of one of the WAM tables.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Rep. Kush.
Thank you. I actually have two questions if the chair will allow. First, if these 3 or 5 positions in the program ID, HRD 102, if funds are not available for those positions, and especially the 3 sound pretty critical, because of, thank you for your gains it sounds like you've been making in hiring process, like 700 people for doe care officers is impressive. That wasn't the case in the past. Would those funds from those 12 vacant positions, do you anticipate filling those imminently, or might those have some flex built in to an upcoming resignation, or not resignations, retirements? Do you see any play there in that money, that 300K?
I do not, and the reason being is DHERD we're a total of 102 positions. So each branch is maybe only 3 or 4 or 5 people. We have some bigger programs, but we have some, like our benefits team is a team of 5. Our compensation branch is a team of 3. So I can't just take one of those and not feel the consequences of not filling those positions. We just had 4 people retire just recently, and we do anticipate filling all of our vacancies where they're currently allocated. Simply for that reason, there really isn't any fat in DHERD.
Okay, thank you. And then the second, and maybe you covered it because there was a lot of impressive gains, but one of the things that we've heard in the past was the metric of how long it takes to hire someone. And I know that probably bears the individual department that's also hiring. So the metrics could be different across different job fields. Have you seen any increase in that, or do you have any comments, or is there a length of time? Because I know if it takes 6 months or 12 months to hire someone, they may find another job in between, and I understand that's been a problem in the past.
Right. So the important thing to know is when a position becomes vacant or newly established, when there's a vacancy that needs to be filled, it's in the department first. So they typically do an internal recruitment, and they offer the job to their own current civil service employees first. That's the first kind of step. And if they're not able to fill it internally, then they come to DHERD and they submit a requisition for us to either provide them an existing list of names, because you're probably familiar, a lot of departments have common job titles. For example, like an accountant 3, right? Pretty much every department, except for DHERD, has an accountant 3. And so we oftentimes have an existing list of names that we refer to departments if they ask for it. And so that list would go out within, say, 48 hours of them asking for it. So there really is no delay. But if we need to go out and recruit, then our goal is to get every job that we've been asked to recruit for up and posted on our website within 2 weeks. So there's a little bit of back and forth with the department. There's an awful lot of information that needs to go into the computer system to get it posted. But ideally, we would have that job up and posted within 2 weeks of getting the requisition. And then there's a duration, right, that we are accepting applications, whether that's DoCare officers and it closes within hours, or whether we leave it open for 2 weeks, and sometimes longer. If we have a lot of vacancies and we know it's gonna be difficult to fill, we may do a continuous recruitment and we just leave it open until they tell us, stop, we filled it. So there's different avenues there. And then we have a period of time where we screen the applications, and we've made a lot of progress. That used to be sort of the bugaboo, right, is how long it took DHERD to screen and get the list back to the department. And right now, we've put a tremendous amount of focus on and speeding that part up and getting the list back. But then once it leaves DHERD's hands and we send the department the list of qualified applicants, the ball is back in their court to then schedule interviews, do reference checks, make a selection, and onboard. So it's very difficult for me to put a timestamp on it, because we're only one portion of the entire hiring process. And many times, I think 60% of the time, it never comes to DHERD. It's part of the Act 57 report, we're trying to not call it Act 57 report, we're trying to call it the vacancy report. The vacancy report has basically the number of requisitions that have come to DHERD and the ones that still are in the departments. So that number is less than 40% come to DHERD, so that means that 60% of the vacancies are still in the department. So I can't speak to why there's delays at the departmental level. But I can tell you that less than 40% they've submitted requisitions for, and we're working on helping them recruit and fill.
Okay, and just follow up to that, just that screen time, what would be your guesstimate?
It used to be months, and now we're closer to weeks now. I think we're hoping in December, and then the applications we got, probably 1,000 just in January so far. So that 41,000 that we get every year is, you can kind of do the math, it's about 800 or so per week that we're trying to churn through regularly. And sometimes we have these blips where, like Ojai, we got 7,700 that we didn't really anticipate having to screen. So there are times where we're slowed down just because of volume and holidays and that sort of thing. But our goal is eventually to get to the point where we can get those lists out within about 3 weeks.
Okay, well, fantastic, thank you.
Alright, members, any additional questions? Rep. Takaguchi, Vice Chair.
Thanks. Hi, Director, Deputy Director, thank you. Can I ask a follow-up to that last question Rep. Kush brought up? So I think, the last 3 years I've been on the committee, we have heard a lot of the frustration from some of the departments about a lot of these things. Thank you for your work on that. Do you get the sense that, you guys are kind of early this year in the info briefings? I guess with your work within the administration with the other departments, do you think they're seeing a lot of these things helping them and helping their frustrations that they've kind of voiced in the past? Or are we gonna get the same kind of pushback when we try to push them on their vacancies and why programs aren't able to maybe work as well as we want them to see? Is that kind of work within the administration, I guess, happening?
I think there's probably still gonna be some frustration, and not that it's necessarily DHERD's fault, but I think, we'd all be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the challenging labor market that we have in Hawaii. We have 2.7% unemployment. That's really low. Basically, everybody who wants a job is working. So we have to provide something that's more attractive. We have to be faster. We have to strike when the iron's hot. So I'm not sure what they're gonna say, but I can tell you we're doing our damnedest to try to meet their needs and to be responsive to their needs. And we'll continue to do that and you know, and be receptive to what kind of suggestions they have. But like I pointed out, 60% of those vacancies are still at the departmental level. So I'm not, we can't be blamed for all of the issues around vacancies. And I think if you looked at the Act 57 report as well, there's about over 400 positions which have been vacant for 4 years or more. And so that tells me there's probably something else going on there. Typically when a vacancy sits for that long, or 4 years is kind of extreme, even if it's 2 years. My recommendation to anybody that asks me is try something different, right? If you're not able to fill a vacancy after a year or 2 years of trying to hire a particular person, change it up, or bring it down to a lower level and train somebody up. You got to try something different at that point. So some of it, might be fair, but I think they also need to be more creative in how they approach filling their vacancies.
Is there kind of support or I guess work being done to kind of help them kind of pinpoint like why, like that 60% is getting kind of stuck with them? Or is that's just in their ball court to kind of churn through until you guys are ready to get into the process?
Well, each department has a departmental human resources officer, basically a managerial point of contact who runs their HR operation. Because DHERD, we do two things basically centrally. We manage work comp claims for all state employees, and we do that centralized recruiting to the outside, right? The open, competitive to the public. But basically, other than that, most of the HR operations happen at the departmental level under the supervision of their departmental human resources officer. So that individual is basically the individuals that group are the ones that we interface with most. We go to their monthly meeting and talk about issues and talk about these things. So there are a lot of touch points between DHERD and the department's HR operations, but in terms of drilling down into their departments, typically not unless asked. We try to work through the HR staff in order to help them fill their vacancies. And whatever else they might have, whether it's a classification issue or maybe the MQs, the minimum qualification requirements are misaligned and they're not getting the right applicant pool for what they need, then that's where we would wanna, help fix that.
Can you give us a brief update on the status of the classification and compensation study and maybe any additional funding that may be required?
So as I mentioned earlier, we've just we're in the contracting phase right now. So we've made a selection of a vendor and we're just working through the contract procurement requirements, and then we hope to get rolling very soon. In terms of whether we would need additional funding, not sure right now. Our classification plan has over 1,450 unique job titles that this vendor is going to have to sift through, and all of the qualification requirements pretty quickly. It may end up taking a little longer than I think we would all hope. But I think right now we're supposed to come back to you in October with a plan and with a report in anticipation of it coming to the legislature in 2027.
Okay. And
Very ambitious though.
Sure. And tied into that, something that's gonna come up and it does come up is we do have a number of positions, a great number of positions within the state that largely pay what most would consider a sub-living wage, and it makes scaling up really difficult. As there have been changes in requirements put on the state for in the federal government for eligibility verification, one of the challenges that those jobs don't pay, and they're very difficult to find. In some cases, less than you'd make working at a fast food restaurant. So is that something that is really like a focus of that study, and we can expect some real tangible recommendations?
Yes, so compensation is another big component to this study. So we anticipate is not only the classification and the qualifications and the minimum qualifications and the job titles, it's basically the whole ball of wax. There's nothing that's off the table in terms of what we want to look at, the structure, how we're organized, the leveling. I think you folks have heard me say before, we have like 7 different levels of accountants. Do we really need 7? Is that effective, efficient? Do we you know, can we somehow make this more streamlined to make it us more competitive? Maybe we don't need those lowest levels, maybe we can start at a higher rate. But all of that obviously would come at a cost if we make big fundamental changes to how we price jobs. And so that's a concern, right? And making sure that we can prioritize, and then we can come to you with a plan on how we get there that
Sure.
the state can afford.
Thank you. Members, additional questions?
Just
Rep.
one more
Morikawa?
question, cause I was looking at some compensation. An office assistant makes way less than a janitor. Is that something you guys are looking into? I mean, way back when, it used to be either equal or a white collar would be a little higher than a blue collar.
Yes, again, that is part of the study. There's some historical significance to some of the collective bargaining that's happened over the last couple of decades. BU1, which is our blue collar workers, went to basically a single rate, so they pay one rate. All janitors all earn the same dollar amount. And so when they negotiate and when there are collective bargaining increases, basically, typically, we keep the same percentage for most of the bargaining units. There are some exceptions, but by and large, between white collar, blue collar jobs, they get generally the same overall percentage increase in salaries across the board increases. But when you're talking about just one rate, all of that money goes to that one single rate. So if, for example, this past year it was about 3.5%. So that for Unit 1 employees, their base rate of pay goes up 3.5%. Whereas for bargaining units that have a step movement plan, I don't know if you're familiar with that, where they started an entry rate and then every couple of years or so, or when it's negotiated, they would move horizontally across the salary schedule, and we have about 10 different steps. So at the entry rates, we are less competitive. At the midpoint, we're pretty competitive with the market, and probably at the end, we're probably overpaying the market a bit. But what happens when you have a step movement plan of say 10 steps, the funds for those step movements come out of that annual increase. So rather than getting a 3.5% across the board increase, those employees may get 1.5% across the board. So the salary schedule is only going to increase by 1.5% because that additional, say, 2% is used to fund those step movements. Make sense? Sort of? So in other words, Unit 3 has been losing ground in comparison to Unit 1, where all of the across the board goes into that single rate. When you spread it across between step movements and across the board increases, the salary schedule increases much slower. And then you find that there's this inversion of salaries.
It's just sad that you would have an office worker making so much less when they could be a janitor making $20,000 more.
Should change jobs. Right. Members,
So
and
one of the
Oh, sorry,
nice
go
things about, sorry, if I could just add, one of the nice things about doing this study is we hope to put, some data behind those points. And then if we're able to fix some of these issues or address some of these issues, that we can do it. And I would like to see this happen maybe every, 15 or 20 years. We've been doing collective bargaining for 50 years in the state. It's kind of time that we sort of step back and take an overall, a broader perspective and
Thank you
look at some of these
for
things.
that.
okay, Rep. Templo and Rep. Kush, and then
My question is on like modernizing the workforce. Is there any talks on like having gig workers, like having a pool where you can source like specialized labor? Like I guess if you need somebody to fix a computer without the whole procurement process and all that, like a simplified way on creating some type of structure like that? Has there been talks or like, yeah.
Not really. The departments can hire individuals through as an 80-90 hire to for short-term kind of emergency needs. That they have the flexibility to do that, but it's different than what you're talking about, where you kind of just have a specialized. That's really to me more of a procurement issue and how we hire individuals versus employees. We're primarily focused on trying to fill civil service long-term our workforce, rather than temporary kind of flexible needs.
So there has not been any talks on creating systems where people just kind of wanna do side projects and be kind of like a gig worker on a state level?
I think it would be like through a procurement. So there are lists of, for example, professionals. You can have a list of individuals who are pre-vetted, say for engineers and architects and attorneys who do work for the state, and they're kind of on a pre-vetted list. But I don't wanna get too far into that because procurement is not my area of expertise at all.
Okay, thank you.
Brett, question?
Just quickly, thank you for all your time. Workman's comp, has there been any progress on shortening evaluation periods and getting people back to work and the, processing on your end?
Just generally, if you have specific questions, our administrator is here, but over the last few years, we've made a tremendous progress in reducing the number of open workers' comp claims that we have. And just this past year, we were able to fill one of our long-term vacancies, which was for a vocational rehabilitation specialist in our workers' comp division. So that individual's her entire job is to get individuals back to work. And so she works closely with the employee's physician and with our programs in order to either provide light duty to get them back and then ultimately to get them back to their regular job or to do a job search for them if they're unable to return to their usual and customary work. So we're super excited that she's joined our team and she hit the ground running. And so yes, we are making progress in that area.
Good. You don't have any metrics to share?
Not specifically, we could get back to you
Percentages or?
with, I don't have any off the top of my head, but we could get back to you with some
Okay.
information on that.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Couple of timeline questions actually. First is about Operation Hire Hawaii. I saw the numbers that you guys have reported for the year. Glad to see we're getting some of those federal guys in. I guess two-part question. Has that been, continuous throughout the year, or has there been a slowdown, now that things have calmed down a little bit after we launched it? And then has there been talk about how long we're gonna run the program since it was created by executive order?
Yes, initially when we launched Operation Hire Hawaii, it was, we were planned to do it for at least a year to pilot it. And then the idea was, let's assess it, see what's working, what we could perhaps either operationalize as part of our process or not. But we're coming up on the year. I think next month we'll make a year. I anticipate that we'll probably keep it up for a little bit longer. There is still interest in continuing. I think typically we have about 50 jobs that are posted on our website at any given time under the Operation Hire Hawaii banner. So I think it's still an important tool that's available to departments if they have a particular vacancy that they want to fast track and they feel like that's the best approach. So I don't have any burning desire to shut it down anytime soon. I'd actually like to see more departments use it, but we understand that oftentimes there are staffing challenges on their side. So understandable, they pick and choose when it meets their needs.
Sorry, one more. And then is there any, I guess this would probably just be like a general timeline update question. The other study about the reducing the vesting time, is that like on track as far as you guys are concerned? We're gonna get the recommendations to hopefully maybe look at possibly doing something if it seems positive in 27?
So we have not started on that project. Our focus was really on the classification and compensation study since that is a bigger project with a very short deadline. But we have reached out and we've met with ERS to get their feedback. As I think you folks are aware that ERS has a new executive director, and so we have also spoken to Calvert, and we'll go make another appointment with him very shortly to see how to move forward. We haven't really decided who's gonna be lead on it. Obviously, that's not an area that we're tremendously versed in. So we would, in any case, we'll be working closely with ERS to make sure that we ask the right questions and get a good work product out of that study. but
Okay.
definitely intend to proceed with it. It's just a matter of how we manage it moving forward.
Okay, it's a little too early for any kind of guess about when we could get that.
What we've learned is that there are a lot of vendors or consultants in this space. So it doesn't, we don't anticipate it being a challenge to find somebody to do this study. So it's just a matter of working through the procurement process and making sure that our scope of work is appropriate for everything that you folks are expecting out of that report.
Thank you.
Anything additional? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very
We're gonna recess very briefly, let everyone get settled, and then we'll reopen with Department of Law Enforcement. Recess. We're reconvening the Committee on Finance for the purpose of budget briefings, and we're gonna open up with the Department of Law Enforcement. Director?
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mike Lambert. I am the Director of the Department of Law Enforcement. With me today, I have Deputy Director Javier Dula, Fire Marshal Dorothy Booth, Executive Officer Brandon Asuka, Finance Manager Russell Fong, Human Resources Officer Jennifer Igami, Budget Analyst David Tran, Legislative Analyst Kathy Seo, and Litigation Coordinator Laura Marshall. So for this briefing, we just want to bring you guys up to speed on kind of what we're doing and the direction that we're trying to take. Just for some background, we have the most basic functions of port, airports, harbors, to include state narcotics investigations as well as general criminal investigations. Majority of our criminal investigations have to do with state facilities. A lot of that resources go into jail. So for example, when people are raped, assaulted, or unfortunately even murdered, that falls on the responsibility of the Department of Law Enforcement. We do have our new add-ons, which is the agricultural crimes as well as the fireworks task force. And we are moving in the right direction in those areas. In the package that we sent you, starting on page 2 and 3, we outlined 15 priority areas. I'll go ahead and leave that for questions further out. The biggest things that we're really trying to work on as we grow our agency to be competitive is pay parity. Right now, bargaining 14, which the sheriffs fall into, they are right anywhere between $22,000 to $24,000 less than our county counterparts. We are doing our repricing. We're hopeful, but we don't think that it will even come close. That does impact us in regards to hiring. We have a 27% vacancy. Our counties are experiencing 20%, so some people will say money is not the answer, but I would rather be at 20% than 27%. So in other words, having a fair wage and at least be comparable would help me to fill those vacancies. If we move to the priority list, and again, I'm willing to answer any questions into the breakdowns that we provided. But for priority 1, 2, and 3, they have to do with our state narcotics lab and utilizing funds that are revolving and to increase the ceiling, because as the cost for analyzation, training, and whatnot increases, the ceiling needs to be lifted where it's too low. But we do have money in the fund, so there should be no impact. For priorities 4 through 7, all that has to do is a reshifting of our organization, so it's a net zero change. All it would do is you move the positions into the appropriate program code based on the move. The reason why we did the move is there are some inefficiencies that were occurring. In other words, too many people here, not enough people there, and we had to move them into different programs. For priority 8 and 9, that has to do with the Department of Law Enforcement having the ability to support the fire marshal as an attached agency. Those two pots, 8 and 9, are still going to the Department of Labor, and they're supposed to be attached to the fire marshal. So we're just asking for those to be moved over to us. For the most part, we don't have too many asks this year. Our instructions are to be an execution year, so it's relatively a flat request. I know the big topic is going to be fireworks, so I'll go over some of the highlights for this year. The fireworks task force seized 121,000 pounds of illegal fireworks coming to the state. We're happy with that. And that does not include 3 more containers that still need to be weighed. So we had a really great year. We made 5 felony arrests. We executed 23 search warrants. We opened up 8 investigations against homes utilizing nuisance abatement. So again, I know we still had some this year, but I think that it was definitely an improvement over last. I know that's not true for every neighborhood, so I don't want to celebrate. For those neighborhoods that we were not able to get to or they did not see a notable response, please just give us time. It was year 1. With that, we'll just open it up to questions.
Great, and yeah, again, just some standard, how are you folks dealing with the current restrictions? Do you see the need for an emergency appropriation or anything incoming?
Not at this time, not for the supplemental year.
Okay, and then on the federal fund side, any highlights on, risks, or you guys kind of handling everything okay?
We did have some scares with our Office of Homeland Security. So what that office does, it works with our federal partners for threats against bomb threats, terrorist threats, weather threats that come in. We did have a scare, but we're confident that after the federal funding was released that we're going to be okay. but we are monitoring that very closely.
Okay, members, questions for the department? Break the ice, go for it.
Hi Director, thank you for being here and you and your team.
Thank you.
I was just curious, in budget finances and governor's decision, is there an issue the administration raised you about the trade-off transfers and why they didn't approve those?
Yeah, we're not too sure why it had to come out to this pathway.
And yeah, thank you for all your work with the illegal fireworks task force. Definitely in my community, I got feedback very early on that it didn't start right after usually Halloween actually sometimes or definitely after Thanksgiving. And it was very just concentrated. They did see illegals or some things that kind of get on their nerves, but it was very concentrated around actual New Year's Eve. And I think that's a credit to the work you guys have been doing in just keeping things out of community, a lot of that education campaign. So thank you for that work. Could you go a little bit more into the buyback program for the fireworks specifically? Did that work pretty much like the gun buyback?
Very similar. So we got over a ton of fireworks over the course of last year, and the most important or the most significant effort that was made in that is that we wanted to remove I had nowhere to take the ones that I already had. I had it prior to the new law. It was left over from last year. So what we wanted to do is give everybody the opportunity to legally turn it in to avoid the stiffer penalties. The penalties this year are harsh, but they're appropriate based on the type of danger that they had. I think if you guys saw on social media, the one that hit that Maui house and it ripped off the siding, if somebody had been standing there, they would have died. So, it's not a joke. I know it's very controversial to some people, but we're not talking about bottle rockets and jumping jacks. If that was what we had, I doubt we'd be having these conversations. So we're just moving forward.
You guys plan to? Are you guys gonna do it on a regular interval? I guess like after the major holidays, just get it out of your.
We are. It's going to be a recurring mission. So fortunately, through the House, we were able to get a large amount for undercover operations for at least Oahu County. So we're going to continue those. I live near Ho'opili. It did lit up from about 11:30 to 12:30 per my fiance. I was out trying to battle the best I could, but it's actually been quiet afterwards. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We're gonna follow up on tips and we're still gonna utilize the drone. So moving forward, because what happened New Year's Eve is everybody kind of went under the cover of each other, knowing that we would be overwhelmed. But when people pop independently throughout the year, it's much easier for us to at the very least utilize the fireworks section in the nuisance abatement law. A lot of people may balk and say, oh, that's nothing. For nuisance abatement to work, you have to give the property owner an opportunity to abate the illegal activity. So it's not a toothless thing. It's actually just the first phase in abatement. So when you guys hear that abatement letters went out, please understand that is required by law if we do intend to do any further civil action beyond that.
Sorry. Oh, so that's those are letters that are going to be sent out based on the drone footage and
So based
some
on
of the
the
other information collected on
Correct.
New Year's Eve.
So we're scouring through all of the tips that we can get through. For tips that did include photographs, if we feel that there's enough evidence. So the difference between criminal prosecution and civil prosecution or civil litigation is that for criminal prosecution, you need beyond a reasonable doubt, which is essentially 99% likely that it occurred. For civil process, you just need a preponderance of evidence, which means that it was more likely than not that it occurred. So although we can't always get criminal prosecution against people, if we can leverage the reasonableness of more than likely, then we want to use those avenues.
Okay, no, that's good, thank you. And yeah, I did see some of the initial numbers that were printed in the news that you guys released. The comment sections were a little, this is all that happened when you guys are doing all this work. So that's really good to know that there's another round of kind of warnings, enforcement kind of thing happening. And yeah, please, I hope you guys do share that with the public so that they can kind of see things happening in community, because I think that does help a lot, that people know, right, or they know somebody got a letter, so you're gonna think twice before you actually do something next year kind of thing. So yeah, thank you for your work on that.
And I appreciate your feedback and questions on that. For the tickets, I'm just gonna say that was a number that I was not happy with. You know, the counties are great partners, so I'm just gonna have to figure out, you know, what hindered them from giving more tickets that night. Again, the Kuleana, if you guys watch the KHON special, I was very clear, the Kuleana on the state is the importation, and I think we did a great job at that. We just need to partner with our counties more to understand what the limitations are in giving those tickets.
Rep. Alcos?
Hi, Director. What is your plans on bringing down drug trafficking and human trafficking? Can you speak a little bit about that this year, or how it compared to a couple years ago? Is it coming down?
So drug trafficking has kind of remained flat. The biggest indicator for illegal drugs is the street level cost. Unfortunately, the street level cost is lowering, which means that there's more supply. So you know, the Department of Law Enforcement does have its state narcotics office. It is a member of the high intensity drug trafficking area initiative, which is a federal initiative that brings everyone together. So we are working on that. The state does not technically have a internet crimes against children. I'm sorry, the Department of Law Enforcement doesn't have a dedicated unit to internet crimes against children, which is a kind of a national thing. We do participate in it, but we don't have full-time investigators attached to it. So in regards to the human trafficking part, we just provide additional assistance to the counties upon request. For drug trafficking, we do make active investigations. Predominantly, a lot of our cases are at port, so it's the people that try to bring it in via the airport.
Thank you.
Rep. Moikawa and then Kush?
I have a compensation question. Your deputy sheriffs, you have 1, 2, and 3. Why are the 1s and the 2s getting the same SR rating?
So a lot of it has to do with, that's a recruit. So they're on recruit status, and then once they pass their probation, then they switch to 2.
They become a 2.
They become a 2, yeah.
And
So
then
1 is like the
when
journeyman.
can they become a 3?
So that's when they get promoted. So that's at the rank of sergeant.
So if these employees end up being long-term, that you could have all 3s.
No, because you would need supervision. So typically what you would see in our agency is you would see bulk of our employees being 2s, and then of course it would go smaller from there. Typically our span of control is anywhere from 5 to 8. So for every 3 that you see, there'd be about 5 to 8 2s.
So the 3s are the supervisors.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just thinking compensation, how can you get better compensation for your workers?
Yeah, so you know, a lot of it has to do with collective bargaining agreements. Again, we're not asking for anything this year with everything going on. Next year, I'll probably be hoping that someone will introduce some type of parity bill. Some of the ideas that I've had is a base match. So what that would do is instead of increasing their pay, which could hurt overtime, you know, calculations, it's that $20,000 difference. Basically, they get a $15,000 flat match every year. So at the very least, when I go to a recruitment event, our poster will say at least 70,000 compared to the county 79,000. Versus it's embarrassing. Our signs say 55 to 79 versus their 79, and it's amazing that even anybody takes our jobs.
Yeah.
So for the 350 sworn that I have, I'm really appreciative to them.
Are they all called sheriffs?
So we're 3/4 of our agency are considered sheriffs. The other half are considered state investigators or general police. We are working with DHR to create an actual state police class. So within our
Yeah.
agency, we would have parity with the counties, and instead of people trying to kind of cut their teeth with the sheriffs and then vie for a county job or a mainland job, if they want, they could come in at the more basic functions of a sheriff and then transition to a state police officer at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Kush?
Thanks for all your gains in the labor force side. And for those who don't know, in Hilo, they had a huge fireworks bust, so that was great with 2 possible felony convictions, along with your ag theft work. You had mentioned that there was gonna be 4 people available for an ag crimes unit on Hawaii Island. Do you foresee hiring that in the near future, or any progress on that front?
So we're hoping, because we actually wanna eventually spec that as the first state police, because of their broad authority. that's taking some time, some work with DHERD. So what we're trying to do is do it as a special project now so that we can just set the rate at the county rate and then hopefully attract some good people. So yes, for Hawaii County, you guys would have one sergeant detective, and 3 regular patrol officers. So we're working as quickly as we can. DHERD has helped us, along with what we need to fill out. I guess it's just a matter of the processes that are in the way.
Any speculation on timelines?
I
When that
think-
might be recruitable?
We're hoping, we have to talk to see what the status is on a special project request. Of course, a lot of that has to do with, where would the funding come from beyond the pilot period? So I think that's what the question that needs to be answered. And so we're working with Gov's office on that.
Okay, do you have the funds to continue it, or is that something that you need to request from the legislature?
We definitely have enough for this fiscal and next fiscal, whenever it should kick on, but definitely we're gonna have to talk about year 3, 4, and 5. It would be nice if that funding existed so that the special project would kind of sail through, because it's just a matter of who pays for it after. We've already made some great gains in regards to the community. We had some positive press in recovering a prize cow, which I didn't realize that they could be worth 25 grand. So that was interesting. So it's definitely just a matter of the process. I'm confident that we're gonna show some gains in that. Of course, we're coming out of fireworks season, so the focus is gonna be ag crimes. Traffic safety is huge, and of course, we need to kick up on drug issues.
One more additional, I didn't see it here, but will the fire marshal be speaking today?
Yes, if you guys have questions for her, we can go ahead and bring her up.
Is that on the agenda or just questions driven?
Yeah, I got a couple small ones. Members, any additional questions for the director? Okay, yeah, we'll go through the director.
She has admin questions.
Oh no, we'll stay with the director for now, and then that way we can kind of, avoid the musical chairs. So Vice Chair and then Rep. Peruso.
Director, you mentioned the traffic safety issue, and if it's more appropriate to ask DOT when they're here, I can ask them instead, cause Director Sniffen has kind of talked to me about speeding issues along Pali Highway and on many of your surface streets and partnering with your department to do a state highway patrol. Are you able to share anything about that work? Is that coming from his department this year to kind of get that set up, and how's that gonna kind of work?
So the funding would come from DOT. We don't have it in our current budget to support. But he did work with the federal DOT to allocate funding to us. Typically, only the counties would get funding for additional enforcement, so we're very grateful to him. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna work with him on a data-driven plan, being that we're so tiny and we can't be everywhere. We're gonna focus around schools during the day for speeding, distracted driving, whatnot. And then on the weekends and evenings, it's speeding and DUIs. So again, we're tiny, so you might only see 1 or 2 squads per area, and this is statewide. So in every county, there's gonna be on the weekends and whatnot. So if you guys are aware of complaints of speeding, particularly near schools or state buildings, please reach out to us or the DOT, and we can go ahead and work on that. I think that if we stay in our lane, and we definitely don't want to undermine or get in the way of the county, but being that they're short, we're coordinating with them. So I talk directly to the traffic major, and the relationship is this. If a request comes through, I call up that traffic major and I say, do you guys have any plans for, let's say, H3 tomorrow night? They say no, and then we'll go ahead and send our sheriffs out there to fill in. Again, the goal of the DLE, because we're so tiny, we only make up 10% of the law enforcement community. Our job is to supplement and support the county. So it's not to interfere.
Since the program's gonna be run with existing personnel, or are you still looking to scale up to specifically do this program?
Right now, it's gonna be existing personnel. Director Sniffen, through his federal pathways, are trying to see if those people that are assigned to airports, harbors, and eventually the traffic division could be given a supplemental pay, so there would be a sheriff. But those assigned to that would be a supplemental pay through federal DOT or federal airports to match the county pay. Because I will acknowledge that our judiciary section is a very basic function. But for my airports, harbors, and some of my others, they do the same thing as the county do, and it's really disheartening that they're not paid. Little off track, but I want to share this, that in that Kapo Hulu incident where a sheriff was shot as doing task force work with the DEA, there was an HP officer to no fault of his own, 10 feet away, that didn't get shot, but makes 20 grand more a year. So when I hear that we're not doing what they do, I'd like to highlight that as an example of not being true.
Thank you.
Pruso?
Oh, my question was just about the vacancies and whether or not they're concentrated in one particular area or geographically.
So for us right now, out of 490 authorized positions, we have 136 vacancies. So we really are hurting. There's a lot of pressure from judiciary to staff. I've had some very plain conversations with them that, you know, I can't take from Peter to pay Paul, and it's not like I have 100% staffing at the airport and I'm refusing to put them in the courts. The courts are probably the best staffed, you know, because we understand what's going on there. But I also have to balance the fact that if we don't have enough sheriffs at the airport, we could lose international status, which would be devastating to our economy. So it's important that I have parity so that I can recruit, so that our courts, our airports and harbors can be well staffed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Members, additional questions for the director? I have a couple small ones. I think, yeah. So just conceptually, I know like in terms of tonnage, seas and stuff, I think for a lot of drug operations, it's kind of easier to conceptualize. What does 121,000 pounds mean?
So typically your average consumer, so not the people that like really piss you off in your neighborhood, but your just average Joe Schmo family will buy around 50 to 100 pounds. So that would equate to the fact that anywhere from 1,200 to 2,400 families didn't have illegal fireworks this year.
Mm-hmm. And then like an average kind of aerial firework is what, 1 to 5 pounds, give or take, or?
Yeah, so like for example, a 24 shot kit of mortars, the ones that go zoom, boom, right? The ones that are, you know, I need to fight. Sorry, I'm a sound guy.
No, go ahead.
So a 24 shot pack can run you $500. So
Mhm.
just to put that into context. So and a pack weighs about 13 pounds.
Okay, on the high end. Okay,
Yeah, on the
gotcha.
high end, yeah.
Okay. And you know, there's a lot of discussion, you know, from various departments on how to implement AI, but I would imagine that like one pretty like low level application would be, you know, utilizing those drones or even like just steady cameras to track activity and just be able to maybe get an approximation for where we are in terms of current, you know, aerial fireworks versus where we will be. Are you guys doing anything like that?
Yeah, so we're big on tech. Drones is what everybody sees, but we have large investments in license plate readers, and one of the most exciting investments that we made this year, which I hope you guys will support, is a shot spotter. So what it does, it indicates gunshot detection, but it also, as a secondary tool, can give us overlay of fireworks. So we only have enough for the pilot year to do 10 square miles, so we're gonna have it around this area, obviously, for, you know, gunshot detection in Kalihi. And then we're gonna put some into Waianae. So or the, you know, actually from Nanakuli to Waianae. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna give us a temperature check year over year, based on sound if we're making improvement. The more important part is that, you know, a lot of people wondered why we put so much emphasis on fireworks, and the issue is that people are debating whether or not that's allowable. Nobody's fighting us on guns. Right, so just to be very clear, we are focused on guns, we are focused on traffic, we are focused on all the traditional things, but no one's fighting us on that. So what we're gonna see, particularly in Kalihi where we've had gunshot or gun incidents, and in Waianae unfortunately we have gunshot incidents, we're gonna overlay that technology with AI to kind of tell us how people are flowing. So in other words, what that would look like in real time is a gunshot comes in, the indicator would give us within 10 feet of where the sound generated,
Mhm.
and then that would overlay with license plate readers. So predominantly a lot of our shooters will flee in vehicles. So what'll happen is, let's just say if there's a sound shot down here and the system was set in place, we would know every car that fled from this area, which would give us a lead. Typically right now what happens in these instances, it's if nobody saw it, there's really no leads. And AI is integrated in that generation. Or generation of information. The other things that we are utilizing AI for is also for fireworks tracking. We're trying to get more input data from our shippers. It's something that might have to happen at the federal level to allow us to draw down shipping data, and we could feed it. Just to let you know, the manifest would probably be about this high per day, and it would take a person a week. If we were able to get that data and ingest it into AI and looking for irregularities, it could complete that search within 5 minutes. So we are looking into it. Some other AI things that we're using on for HR issues and whatnot is automatic responding to applicants that apply, so they know where they are in the status. We're working with a vendor, Workday. several things that does for us is it keeps people engaged in the employment process, though it takes long. Secondly, what it'll do is it'll create a file of that individual's growth for their career. So some of the things that we have when we're trying to respec or people are trying to get other positions is that we can't track their training records. And that obviously becomes problematic. So we are in full embrace of AI type tools.
Gotcha, okay. Any follow-ups for the director? Okay, thank you very much. We have our fire marshal here. I have a quick kind of broad question. You know, we worked together over the last year to kind of get things set up and set up the initial framework and just sorry, it's been a rough one, but some of us go.
Can you maybe just keep us abreast of what the activity's been this last year?
So absolutely, the first now 7 months, just reached that a couple days ago, has really been about getting to know the stakeholders across the state, traveling from the different counties to learn what their fire prevention bureaus are doing, as well as fire operations, community organizations, nonprofits, to really see what's currently happening in the state, where we can improve upon what needs to be improved upon and changed. Some of the key focuses, like I said, this year was really that relationship building so far and identifying how to streamline and standardize our relationships together. Working with kind of that gap analysis of code enforcement, whether it's from the wildland-urban interface, which each county, and similar to what the director had mentioned, code enforcement really lies within the county fire departments, outside of state lands and properties. That's where my kuleana lies is there, but also that direction of training and certifications, which I'm now at a point, I'm actually traveling to a conference next week for accreditation with Chief Jacobs to make sure that our fire inspections, fire investigations, fire life safety educators are part of that accreditation process, so we can start seeing that streamlined organization across the board. Also working with identifying for statewide fire response for wildfire this coming season, knowing what resources are available, MOUs, mutual aid contracts, those types of scenarios where knowing that each island literally is on their own for probably that first 24 to 48 hours of initial attack. It's how do we build depth in our system, not only statewide but nationwide, to ensure that we've got any mechanism in place to be able to get as many boots on the ground as possible to get ahead of our fires. And also working with Alert West, trying to get additional early detection cameras and similar to AI of how that's gonna play in to make sure that we can get on top of these fires sooner than later. And working through staffing, we've got a couple, been working with this team here, heard in the governor's office, likely going to be doing a special project for staffing, just to better align the types of staff that we need to really get the foundation correct, to build the office, from the ground up to start, and then looking at doing a staffing assessment or community risk assessment over the next year to be able to identify what the state fire marshal's office would look for minimum staffing to be a proactive versus reactive, to make sure that we're meeting the objectives of Act 302, but also the implied tasks and things that might not have been necessarily stated in there.
Okay. Members, any additional questions?
I get one.
Yeah, go ahead.
For firefighters, you guys are not just fighting fires, you guys fight, you guys help with the ambulance or the roads or something in the water. What is your percentage of emergency calls that your team attack mostly? Is so busy at,
I would say statewide and, really is community risk reduction in general is identifying that data collection, just as you're saying. I would say largely probably 90% of the calls across the state are gonna be your EMS, medical or rescue types, with the 10%-ish being fire response, which is pretty typical across the country. So now with that in the nationwide, we're transitioning from National Incident Fire Reporting System to National Emergency Reporting Information System, where all of the different departments feed in there. So we can identify what trends we're seeing to help create campaigns and pocket communities to help reduce that risk. But largely, I would say at this point, without having the specific data to know exactly, I would say probably about 85-90% is going to be medical, EMS rescue type, and then the remaining is going to be fire.
Yeah, thank you. I always see you guys first at the scene or EMS mostly.
And I think that depends on the island too, because I know not each fire department has EMS embedded. I know the Big Island does have EMS. Maui, I think, has some, but then the private ambulances are also a big part of the picture, the state EMS as well.
Thanks. Members, additional questions for the fire marshal? Anything else, or, sorry, go ahead.
Do you feel like you have the resources this coming year? Do you have any? I was looking through, I didn't see any, and there's a lot of data here.
So this year is very much a plan and get ready for the next biennium to bring back kind of that more robust future looking plan of what the state fire marshal's office ideally would look like, and staffing that out. I can say based on the current bill and the duties with inspecting like annually, I think we have around 8,000 buildings statewide, and with the by statute to inspect those annually, I can say we definitely don't have enough staffing, but part of that assessment is going to be identifying what those buildings are, giving them a risk profile to come back to come back and say we're, annually is a bit extensive, but we have a plan based on the risk category of these occupancy types to do them cyclical, whether, annually would be your critical infrastructures, hotels, motels, those types of things, and then dialing it down to every 2-3 years for the less critical. But I would say that for this coming year, we'll have enough to really start getting that foundation, but the biennium, the 2027 session will probably be a heavy lift and a heavy ask.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, additional questions? If not, and any additional questions for the department, for the director? Okay, if not, thank you, and thanks for holding up better than I did. We're gonna recess briefly before we have thank you. Aloha, we are reconvening the Committee on Finance for budget briefing from UH. Before we get started, since you guys weren't here at like 9 a.m., we have a new microphone system. So green means it's on, red means it's off. As it's being calibrated, please try to do your best to keep side conversations to a minimum because it may actually pick it up and broadcast it. I think we're pretty much worked through that kink, but just in case. Yeah, okay, solid. All right, well, welcome and please proceed.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Todd, Vice Chair Takanuchi, she's here, and members of the House Finance Committee. My name is Wendy Hensel, and I'm honored to serve as the President of the University of Hawaii. Thank you for the opportunity today to review our budget request with you, and I'm pleased to introduce two members of the leadership team here at UH who are here with me today. From the Board Office, Board of Regents Chair Gabriel Lee, and from the System Office, Vice President for Budget and Finance Luis Salaveria, formerly known as Louis. We can answer those questions if you have them. I'm also pleased, as you can see behind me, to have more than 20 leaders from the system and the campuses here today who are here to support our testimony and answer any specific questions that may come up. In 2025, my first year as president, we worked to implement transformative programs and opportunities to enhance academic excellence, eradicate barriers to student success, and infuse innovation and design thinking across the system to improve effectiveness and efficiency. The university is wholeheartedly committed to collaborating with the governor, the legislature, community, business leaders, and other stakeholders to turn this vision into a reality. Of course, our budget request today is foundational to that collaboration, and your support for our mission, both today and in the future, is incredibly important. We also understand that the funding that we receive from the state brings with it accountability for results. And to that end, let me take just a few moments to briefly share with you a few key initiatives and forward momentum that we have achieved this past year. In fall 2025, UH enrollment reached over 51,000 students, which is a 2% increase from fall 2024, marking the third consecutive year of growth and the highest enrollment since 2017. Our research endeavors achieved remarkable success, with extramurally funded research setting yet another record at $734 million in fiscal year 25, the fourth consecutive year of record numbers, underscoring our role as a leader in innovation and academic excellence. Simultaneously, our philanthropic support shattered previous records, raising $171.7 million to support students, faculty, and groundbreaking research. As you may have seen on the news, UH launched Direct to UH in conjunction with the Department of Education, which allows our public high school seniors to apply to 9 of our 10 campuses with just a few short clicks, rather than a full application. The goal is not only to encourage more applicants, but to create earlier connections that allow us to show how our range of career and degree programs meet the needs of literally every student at the high schools. As of November, our applications are up across the system by 122%. UH also began implementing a system-wide artificial intelligence strategy that includes hiring the university's first AI leader, creating an Office of Academic Technology and Innovation, initiating a task force to develop recommendations for strategic investment, launching a comprehensive plan to equip every student and educator with AI skills, and building secure system-wide infrastructure. We also commenced an innovative system-wide rollout of integrated student success technology, including EAB, Navigate, and Edify, to ensure a common standard of care and equitable support for every student on our campuses, no matter where they sit. EAB Navigate uses predictive analytics to flag students at risk and trigger early outreach and prevention from faculty and advisors. This technology will play an important role in our comprehensive evaluation of system-wide barriers to student retention and graduation rates. You also may have heard we initiated a redesign of leadership positions and structure across the university to ensure we respond to our changing environment and meet the needs of Hawaii. Our infrastructure must support our key strategies and ensure accountability at every level. We've begun the separation of the two positions that I personally hold, the president of the system and the chancellor of the Manoa campus, and launched a pilot combination of leadership across UH West Oahu and Leeward Community College to explore how more integrated operations at these two campuses might fuel innovation and workforce responsiveness for West and Central Oahu. And finally, we have worked to enhance our partnership with our legislative colleagues by implementing regular strategic briefings to ensure that our directions and priorities are transparent, collaborative, and to the greatest extent possible aligned. Thank you, Chair Todd and others here who have participated in those sessions. The forward momentum I describe here is particularly notable because it occurred in an environment of significant challenge for the university that resulted in shifts at the federal level in policy and funding. As of mid-December, 85 extramural grants totaling approximately $109.5 million have been terminated due to shifting federal priorities. An additional $80 million in UH funding has received notice that it is at risk due to a December U.S. Department of Education finding that minority-serving programs are unconstitutional. The issue is compounded going forward by the reduction in new funding opportunities. As of December 1st, UH has experienced a 50% decrease in the number of new federal grant awards and a 60% decrease in the total dollar value of those awards compared to this time last year. In addition, our momentum in research is threatened by federal proposals to cap indirect cost recovery at 15% for research grants. If enacted, this has the potential to create significant financial gaps, increase administrative costs, and constrain momentum in biomedical research. The university has and will continue to navigate these uncharted waters thoughtfully and with a commitment to creating a stronger, brighter future for UH and for the state. We will push forward with our strategic priorities regardless of these challenges. Which brings us to the budget. We are also aware of the funding challenges facing the state in the upcoming year, and for that reason have elected to identify only 2 proposals for consideration in the Board of Regents budget. These proposals specifically were chosen because they are time sensitive and because they are highly impactful not just for UH, but also for the state's economy and for quality of life for its residents. UH plans to use its internal operating funds to support the additional strategic investment and needs that we identified for the forthcoming year. Beginning with our healthcare workforce initiative request, we are requesting $3.7 million and 18.5 full-time positions to help address critical healthcare workforce shortages across Hawaii. Severe shortages exist in practically all health professional disciplines and most medical specialties, limiting access to care, especially in rural and underserved communities and vulnerable populations. The requested funding would support coordinated system-wide health science and healthcare workforce initiatives spanning multiple campuses and units, including the John A. Burns School of Medicine, the School of Nursing and Dental Hygiene, Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health, the Daniel Inouye College of Pharmacy, and the UH Cancer Center. These initiatives focus on 3 urgent areas that directly affect access to statewide care: cancer, neurology and dementia, and behavioral health integration and addiction. UH Manoa Interim Provost Sirmos and UH Hilo Chancellor Bonnie Irwin are here to answer any detailed questions that you may have about those proposals. Moving on to UH Manoa Athletics, we are requesting additional economic support for our athletics department at Manoa in recognition of the impact these operations have for our entire state. This request reflects the need for additional resources to maintain competitiveness in light of the university's transition to the Mountain West for most sports in 2026, and to respond to challenges in NCAA rules regarding student athletes. The proposed initiatives are anticipated to deliver direct economic benefit and value to the state while advancing the athletic program's mission of excellence, community engagement, and student-athlete development. First, we seek to institutionalize 17 general-funded FTEs from temporary roles, and also to convert 35 existing special-funded positions into general-funded positions. This change will ensure stability in critical staff roles in compliance, training, finance, and communications, and notably, this conversion does not require the issuance of new funding to UH, but will provide long-term staffing security and cost savings on the fringe benefits. We also request $10.08 million in annual operational funding to enhance areas like nutrition, recruiting, travel, equipment, apparel, insurance, medical care, academic support, and facility maintenance. This funding will support such things as providing basic meals and enhanced performance nutrition for our student athletes, addressing significant rising travel costs, and ensuring health, academic, and facility resources meet Division I standards as well as the Mountain West. Finally, $5 million annually is requested to establish an institutional name, image, and likeness program that provides fair and competitive compensation to our student athletes. In the current landscape of college sports, NIL opportunities are critical for retaining our local talent and attracting elite athletes who can elevate Hawaii's national profile. This request has already been discussed publicly, and AD Matt Elliott and I are here to answer your questions about that proposal. Finally, our capital improvement program budget request totaled $283.1 million for FY 26-27, supporting primarily capital renewal, deferred maintenance, and modernization projects across all 10 campuses. We focused on the priority areas that we could not afford to do within our own resources, and these investments are essential to maintaining safe, functional, and up-to-date learning and working environments system-wide. VP Jan Gobea is also here to help answer questions relating to our CIP requests. In closing, we sincerely thank you, of course, for taking the time today to speak with us and for all of the incredible past support for the university. We're enthusiastic about the opportunity to work with you this year and look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I turn it over to members, I was wondering if you could give us a brief update on the direct admissions program.
Certainly, you mean in terms of what it does?
Well, just kind of the current status and where things are going.
Sure. So this was a program that had been in discussions for probably 5 years when I arrived, and I had the benefit of having created such a program in my last position and wanted to ensure that it launched this year. And so working with Superintendent Hayashi, we committed to delivering it as of August. And essentially what these are our students. Many of these students are early college students, about 27% of DOE high school students take early college, requiring the process of having to fill out all of these forms a second time is unnecessary and creates burdens that deter some people. And clearly most of our students are not going to be deterred by putting through the application. We try to, in particular, target those who may not see themselves as college material, to be clear that we see you as college material, and in fact, we have open admissions to our community colleges so long as you graduate. And for 2 of our schools at UH West Oahu and also UH Hilo, provided you also have a 2.7, you would be eligible for admissions there. And so literally, with a few clicks, you go in, we pre-populate all the information by data sharing with the Department of Education, and we ask you to identify which schools you're interested in, and we go from there. So the point is not simply to raise the number of applicants, but it's to get them applying early so that we can engage with them in the fall as opposed to late in spring when students are, I don't know what I'm gonna do next, I'm not sure this is the right place for me. So the fact that as of date to date in November, we're up by 122% is a strong statement of the success of that program.
Great, thank you. Okay, members, questions? Vice Chair.
Hi, thank you for being here and bringing so much of your team with you. And thank you for I kind of want to talk about the healthcare positions that you guys had requested. Thank you to so many of the colleges and departments within the system, all the schools who have kind of helped us to kind of really focus on this healthcare workforce issue. I just recently went to the Maui College program for the CNA to LPN glide pathway graduation, so it was really great to see all those kind of nurses get that new designation and get back into the field. Could I think maybe I saw that the positions weren't included in the governor. Colleges might be able to talk about what kind of expansion that would mean for the programs. Like, would that be bigger cohort sizes? What kind of if the positions were to be funded, what would that look like for each of the programs, and the timeline for getting more people right into the specific workforces for each of these sections?
Yes, so there are 3 positions at the School of Nursing under this program. Most of those 3, or the majority of these 3 positions are targeted towards their simulation care lab, which they have at Webster. There is also collaboration between our School of Nursing at Tue Jan. So most of those positions are to staff the lab at the simulation lab. It is targeted on 3 areas, or actually 2 areas for the nursing. One is on the cancer care, and the other one is on dementia and neurology treatment.
Okay, so it would just be more classes available, or would it get people through the
Well,
programs
that will,
faster, or what's?
that actually will allow us to increase the number of nurses that graduate both from UH Manoa and UH Hilo, certified nurses as well, and especially with certifications in dementia, diagnosing Alzheimer's, and that is the workforce that we're looking at this point. And if you need a little bit more detail, I can have the Dean of the Medical School that is here to actually give you a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, if anyone could provide maybe what those actual numbers might be looking like with any kind of expansion of either graduates or programs or classes, that would be helpful.
Good morning, everyone. Sam Shoemaker, Dean of JAVSM. I'm delighted to be here with you this morning. This is a workforce initiative, and it will directly contribute to training more healthcare providers for the state. The proposal we put together is truly interdisciplinary, so that we have positions requested from all the health science programs at the university. Healthcare is a team sport these days, so physicians, nurses, pharmacists, all work together to provide patient care. We picked 3 major public health issues for the state of Hawaii to focus on, and I'm happy to report that at least in 2 of these areas, cancer and neurology, we are starting new training programs that will augment the healthcare workforce in those particular disciplines. So we are starting a hematology oncology fellowship program to build out the cancer workforce in the state. And we're also starting a neurology residency program, which will contribute not only to stroke care, which is a major public health issue, but also to dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So those are 2 tangible examples of how this funding would help to directly support enhancing the healthcare workforce.
Good. And are these areas that, I guess, where you guys, so since they're gonna be a little bit, these are new programs that we're gonna be able to focus on? Has this come, or these requests coming, from the existing student body, from, healthcare community looking to expand? Or are you guys already seeing the interest from, the existing enrollment that you think you're gonna be, like, if we were to be able to get this started sooner rather than later, that we could really get people through very quickly? What's that kind of looking like on your end?
So in considering what programs we wanted to support, we took a look at the specialty availability across the state, and it turns out that hematology oncology physicians are in very short supply, as are neurologists. So these programs will directly contribute to augmenting the healthcare workforce in those particular areas. We also are focusing on substance abuse, which we feel is a very significant public health problem in our state, and we wanted to create a program that can both train additional providers in that area, but also conduct research into how we can most effectively deal with these patients who suffer from substance abuse disorders across the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Alcos, and then Rep. Caruso.
Hi, Doctor. What is an average cost for a student now per year or for 4 years?
How much does it cost to educate a student?
Oh, how much a student have to pay?
Oh, our tuition is $37,000 for each academic year.
So when a student graduate, how much is the student in debt on average?
140,000 roughly. We do have, almost all of our students qualify for some kind of financial aid or scholarship support. So we constantly work with the UH Foundation to find new funding, new scholarship opportunities to cut down on the debt that our students graduate with, because we believe that if they graduate with less debt, they will be able to select specialties that they're passionate about rather than those specialties that pay the most.
So again, how much was it? Is it per year or?
Is there a question for the medical school or for UH in general?
UH for the students when they.
For Manoa, but not for the medical school though.
Yeah, not from the medical school.
Okay.
Oh, you're asking a general question
Yeah.
about, he's talking
What's
about,
it?
those
Yeah,
are the
yeah.
statistics for the medical school.
Yeah.
Our tuition is, I believe, here, I've got the exact number, hold on. The tuition is 12,186 for UH Manoa. It is 7,838 for Hilo, 7,584 for West Oahu, and 3,229 for our community colleges. The median debt is 17,000.
Is
That's about 20%. About 20% of our graduates carry a debt in about a median amount of 17,500
Is that per year?
overall at the end of whatever degree program you're in.
I see.
And 39% of our students pay no tuition at all. So we are significantly below the average as it relates to an institution of our standing in terms of what we charge.
One more question. You speak a little bit about athletes in Hawaii and, keeping our athletes home. University of Hawaii, are you guys putting scholarship money? Because a lot of college now is paying, schools are paying college players. How are you seeing to generate with the state of Hawaii football and to build that up or any sports in the state of Hawaii with your college player by keeping them home instead of they're going out? How you plan on keeping some of them home? Do you have enough funds or do you need to work on more funds on that?
That's the process that we're working on right now, this new landscape with NIL. So about half of our student athletes receive scholarships, or we give about 250 scholarships to the 500 overall student athletes. But now with the new name, image, and likeness model, we are offering students both scholarship and on top of that, these name, image, and likeness payments that are used to help recruit them to the university. Just as a very small example, the newest signing football class of high school freshmen, more than half of those students are from here in the state.
And is some of them getting paid?
So there's a combination, yes, of scholarship plus now name, image, and likeness payments on top of that, yes.
Okay, is University of Hawaii getting funds from the state to pay them or is it outside funds?
Currently, all of that is privately funded.
Private fund. And you guys have a plan on working on building that plan on getting more payment to the students?
Yes, that's what we're working on. So over this system just started 6 months ago. So July 1st was the first time that we could make these payments. In this course of the first year, we've tried to identify what we think is the appropriate budget for the university, for the athletics department overall and per team to be able to sustain the level of success that we're seeking. And what we're seeking today, and part of this conversation, is to see if we can find a combination of both private funding, new revenue streams, and state funding to help meet those NIL goals.
Thank you. I would like to know the budget later on if you guys ever come up with one. Awesome. Good.
So on that topic, and we've been talking over the last few months about whether we're kind of feeling out where other teams within the Mountain West will be, or other programs. Do we have any indication or any updates on where other programs have landed for NIL funding?
Yeah.
Or is it still kind of guesswork a little bit?
It is guesswork, but it is also we are starting to see data and anecdotal evidence based on what we're seeing in the marketplace. The way this all is originated was looking at about 20% of your revenues in certain categories. That's how they came up with the NIL number for the country overall. And that was what led to this $20 million cap for all Division I institutions. When we look at the Mountain West and the competitors that we'll have, we think it's about 25% of that would be the average. So about $5 million is that the correlated percentage of that total revenue. So across all sports, we think that's the right number.
Okay. And so that's the request that's on the table from for the legislature. If that amount is not, the final amount, if you fall short of that during the session, is there a plan to make up the gap through student fees? I know with other programs, many of them charge somewhat exorbitant actually student fees to fund athletics. So let's say you ended up with like 2 or 3 million from the legislature. Would you try to make up that gap with student fees, or is that unclear or being discussed?
Yeah, Chair Todd, I would say that we have not looked at our fees and in some cases in decades, in more areas than just athletics. And so part of our responsibility to the institution is to look across and see where we have not kept pace with inflation and costs. So yes, we will look at athletic fees. I don't believe they've been changed in many, many years. But the answer to your question is we will use what we have, whatever we have. And it was an intentional strategy on our part to identify this funding as NIL. There are many programs that will not identify it as NIL, as a public funding source. We felt like it was important to be partners with the legislature to indicate transparently what's necessary in order to generate the returns in the Mountain West. And so, this is our belief of what is necessary to be competitive, but we will do our best to be competitive in every way, no matter what resources we have going forward.
Okay, and the current student fees are about $800 to $900 a year, or is that a
That's a good
ballpark?
question that I don't have written down, but we can get that for you.
Yeah, about, yeah.
In that range.
Yeah, it looks like it's right around 882
Okay, thank you. Members, additional
for
questions?
Manoa, which would be the highest.
Okay,
would be
I think
less.
Rep. Russo and then Rep. Kush.
I have a question going back to the healthcare workforce initiative. So historically, and I know that you're with the medical school, but historically we've seen a real choke point for the nursing workforce at the university level. So we have a lot of really qualified students, so many who are interested in nursing, so many that it becomes extraordinarily competitive to get into programs. I think the community colleges have been facilitating and they've been broadening their capacity and deepening their capacity. But I'm wondering if the funding that you're requesting, we should also expect to see that strengthening of capacity at the 4-year level for those nursing students. Should we expect to see increased numbers admitted to nursing programs?
I can't directly speak to nursing and what their plans are in terms of expansion. We do recognize that there's a huge nursing shortage in the state of Hawaii. I think the latest data I saw was 4,000 or 5,000 short of the number of nurses we would ideally have. And I know the School of Nursing is working very diligently to expand capacity. So this will help. I can't say it's going to be a panacea where it's going to result in a huge number of new nursing graduates. But one of the perennial problems with expanding the nursing class size is a lack of qualified faculty. So to the extent that we can augment the number of faculty positions that the School of Nursing has, it will result in at least some progress towards meeting that gap between what we actually produce and what we need.
I'll be looking for those numbers of students that you're admitting to the 4-year programs. Thank you.
Rep. Kush.
Thank you for coming today. A couple questions. First, starting on abroad and then focusing to UH Hilo, I think. Is UH Manoa like near capacity, and what, is there any administrative tools that you folks use to keep people engaged in the UH system collectively from community college up to UH Manoa. But try to shift people around or refocus them to underutilized resources within the university. UH has chronically kind of been underutilized in that respect. Is there any tools that you have or are planning to use to?
Yeah, I think in general, we have not taken a system-wide approach to enrollment, which is part of what you're reflecting. Where for example, if Manoa is incredibly successful in recruiting, it may come at the expense of UH West Oahu or the community college where there might be actually more capacity to accommodate those students. And so one of the things that we've launched and that we're working on is a system-wide strategy that looks comprehensively at where those programs are placed and where the levels of enrollment are. And frankly, things like what we call heat maps. What's the usage of those facilities on the campuses, so that we don't have a lot of excess capacity in some places and we're bursting at the seams in others. So yes, that is absolutely part of our strategy, and we're looking at all different types of AI tools and an evaluation of really how to bring folks together to make these decisions versus independent strategies on the ground.
Okay, great. And then part two of that is even more focused, and I know way back there in the back row, but I hate to bring her forward, but the UHH School of Pharmacy, Daniel K. Inouye School of Pharmacy, that every state seemed to recognize the need for pharmacists, and everybody opened the schools, and then there was kind of a glut and it's underutilized. Is there any plans to, that being kind of this part of this bigger conversation, to utilize that facility in different ways?
Yes. So a number of things going on with pharmacy, and as you know, enrollment at UH Hilo overall has been down, although we're turning a corner right now, so I'm optimistic. For pharmacy in particular, we just launched our XO program, which will allow students to pursue their PharmD degree part-time. And we didn't have much time to market it this year, so this first cohort is going to be pretty small, but we're expecting that to grow, not only in state, but also nationally, because this is the first, I believe, part-time pharmacy program to launch. Is predominantly online, so we'll be able to serve as many people who want to do it. So that is one thing, and then the other thing that we continue to do on the pharmacy side is partner across. And so with the healthcare requests that we have this year, each one of those three areas includes a pharmacist. Because as people have already mentioned today, healthcare today is a team effort. And so having a pharmacist in that mix is really important. And for our island in particular, in the area of behavioral health and addiction, that's something we could really use. Lastly, pharmacy has been partnering more with our nursing program at UH Hilo. And so some of the modular buildings adjacent to the main building have been used for nursing labs. And we're hoping to build out, again, because the emphasis is now even more on integrated healthcare, working across. Because our nursing program is vibrant and doing quite well. And so I think all of these things will position the College of Pharmacy to grow as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks everyone for being here. I have a question about EAB. So I kind of wanted to ask just to get a little bit more information about it. So I don't know if you're familiar. I worked at UH for many years and as an academic advisor, and so worked with STAR. And so I've heard concerns about the transition and the decision to move away from STAR, which was built in-house and really could do all kinds of things. And as I was doing academic advising, I've seen the progression of STAR and just how it changed to meet the needs of the academic community and how it integrated both community college to the 4 years. So I'm looking at your document. Here I see contracts that EAB is now contracted $8 million, I think, when I'm adding them all up. So I'm wondering what was the decision behind transitioning from STAR, which, won all these awards and presented at all these conferences over the years, to moving to EAB. what can EAB do that STAR was not able to do, the rationale behind moving to EAB, and then figuring out what is the total amount that we are now paying for EAB going into the future. From my understanding, STAR was in-house, so there was staff, they built it, it was, there wasn't this contracting cost that came along with STAR. So if you can maybe provide a little bit more information about this extra expense that UH is now gonna have to be paying for.
I think the first thing to be really clear about is EAB is a company as opposed to a thing, right? So EAB Navigate is what you're referring to, which is a contract for a analytical program and proactive advising platform that had some components that were reflected in STAR in an early capacity. The best way I can explain it outside of a lot of technical pieces of it is imagine those of you who are using ChatGPT, the difference between ChatGPT today and what it was 2 years ago. It's night and day in terms of the functionality. It is more than doubling in functionality in a single year. To keep that, there is no capacity to maintain that in-house and maintain a state-of-the-art type of program. It's simply, it's replicating and advancing at such a pace that we are really limiting the utility of it by thinking that one or two people internally can meet the massive investments in AI that are taking place externally. So, there is a significantly more sophisticated functionality under EAB Navigate. And it's a long-tested program that continues to expand that shows graduation and retention changes of up to 10 to 15% over the span of like 3 to 5 years. So it's quite significant, lengthy history of detailed graduation and retention outcomes, which frankly then help pay for that technology simply by keeping people enrolled both in real time, but then of course over the life of their contribution to the tax to the state treasury. So I'm happy we have detailed analyses of what functionality we're gaining that I'm happy to provide to you, so kind of get into the nitty-gritty. But that's why it is simply in the environment that we're in with artificial intelligence, it's not comparable to even 5 years ago. And we are not possible internally of maintaining that type of advancement, and we'll be at the losing end of it if we don't find ways to bring that kind of technology in. EAB Edify is another part of that contract, and what is wonderful about that is it takes all the diverse technology systems that we have internally and makes them talk to each other. So right now, I like to say that we are data rich and information poor because we have individual technologies in place at the 10 campuses that don't talk to each other and don't actually provide information without significant manual manipulation that nobody has time to do. EAB Edify actually integrates, it's a data integration platform that helps us take all of the money we've already invested in all of these different places and actually use it for data-rich insights so that what we do is not based on a feeling that it's working, but hard data that this in fact is moving the needle appreciably and it's worth the investment. There's also EAB Strategic Advisory Services. EAB is the national, if not international leader in best practices, in efficiency, in effectiveness, where again, that investment I expect to pay off more in terms of the enhanced operational effectiveness and efficiencies. It's the kind of expertise we don't have in-house and that it would cost us a tremendous amount to employ internally. That said, everything that we do is an assessment between what is the external cost going out and how can we staff it internally. Can we meet that with a lower level of investment of internal personnel? And so where those trade-offs are positive for the university, we'll make them. But in terms of EAB Navigate, I know that there were people who loved STAR and who felt really comfortable with it, as most people don't like change in technology, but the increased capacity and efficiency is unmatched by anything that we have internally.
So what is the total cost? What is it gonna cost going forward to have this new system?
Which again,
Well,
there's
I guess all of them because they all work together, right? So what's this additional cost moving forward?
I don't have that in front of me. It is in our tables in separate columns. I'm happy to go back and provide that to you in a single place.
Okay, so in the I think it's in the contracts, it's like 8 million, sorry.
For multiple years,
so
to be
it's-
clear.
So it would be whatever, that's the cost, and then you just have to renew each time if you wanted to.
Some of that is relating to training and the implementation, expertise, et cetera. So that not all of that is recurring costs, but some of it will be as a subscription service for the product. And then again, what you're paying for with the subscription is the constant updates to ensure that what you actually have is state of the art. And it should generate sufficient savings with graduation and retention rates to actually be very cost effective in the long run.
So when do you when do you anticipate seeing improved graduation and retention rates based on this new system?
Actually, there's as I said, there's at least 10 to 15 years of data now out there where this has been implemented. I happen to be at Georgia State University, which actually created this with EAB Navigate as a pilot, and so that was about 15 years ago. And there's extensive data showing it's not like a 5-10 year window. You can see immediate impacts in terms of retention that are quite appreciable and unmatched. I want to add too, it's a particularly important time for us to invest in this type of technology because the federal government is coming at identity-based student support interventions. And so anything that we can do that is based on removing barriers across the board that's not identity-based to increase retention and graduation actually is more important than it's ever been because we will be losing some of that support based on identity-based interventions. So it's actually quite timely as a strategy and should significantly enhance our efforts to ensure that every student on every campus has a baseline level of support that's equivalent to safety.
Great, thanks.
Great, Rep. Russo.
This is a question I think for VP Salavaria. So on page 24 of your submission, it provides something of an overview of the restrictions, your budget restrictions. And I'm curious, and maybe together you can respond to this question. They are pretty, even though they seem to be small percentages, in my eyes, they seem to be significant amounts, and I'm wondering how that translates for our student experiences and if your emphasis is workforce preparation, how that translates in that effort.
Tell me again what page you're looking at?
Page 24.
So in answering your question, Rep, the restrictions that are placed on the university, literally kind of come from the overarching restrictions that are
No, I understand that. I'm asking for the translation. So the implications for students.
So because the university has, again, a degree of autonomy, we get both tuition and fees, we get we get general fund support, which we are very, very, appreciative for. It's imperative upon us to try and minimize the impact that it has. I'm not going to say that there is no impact. Any loss in general funds is always going to have some degree of impact. But taken in the entire context of the university, it would be very difficult to kind of get down to like a specific, impacted area. Obviously, we can use that money. We would want to use that money, but we would probably have to give you a little bit.
Yeah, if you could come back to me with that answer, because I do think that there are probably concrete answers under the various ID numbers.
We can give you the detail on where we took the restrictions within the particular program IDs. We can get that to you.
Thank you. Members, additional questions for the university? No? I got a couple small ones. Probably more related to athletics again, sorry. Just because it's one of the few things I kind of tied into. Okay, so given the nature of our budget cycle, you're in an awkward place right now, right? Where you have a request on the table, but you have athletics teams that are actively recruiting. So in the meantime, when this is still in flux, what does that mean for the university? Are you already stepping into some of that NIL funding directly now? Or is it, I think you said earlier, it's still 100% private because there's no budget for it? So during this kind of awkward window of time, in theory at least, you're losing out on that recruiting now.
I mean, we are making decisions sort of real time about what we think we can raise from the private sector and what we can generate from corporate sponsorships that can be applied directly to NIL for this fiscal year as we are making payments to students. So those were very strategic decisions about what we thought our capacity was and what it would take to retain the core elements of our team. But you're right, we are kind of doing this real time as we're going. Our decisions for our fall teams about trying to retain those rosters had to be made over the course of these last couple of weeks. And now, for example, in college football, the transfer portal opened this week, and we have to be out there recruiting student athletes to come here to fill our roles.
Sure. And then, there, in addition to the NIL requests, there's substantial requests, but mostly like maybe costs you guys were already absorbing or taking on, or areas where you've been falling short, whether it's meal programs, nutrition, travel, various positions, converting funding sources for existing positions. I know it's difficult to prioritize, but given the size of these requests, like where does that first dollar go?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because I think the dollars will help us in all spaces. And we've created a vision for excellence, which has 4 pillars. And each of those pillars are addressed in some way or manner, shape, or form by these requests. But at the core is the student athlete experience and recruiting and retaining these elite student athletes. I think that probably the fair answer, I don't know if this is absolutely a certainty, but because NIL is so new, because it's something that has been imposed on us by this new framework that's resulting from legislation and litigation, to be able to create that funding source and allow us to retain student athletes to try to get to graduation and be able to prioritize the competitive level of our team, that's a place where I think we probably have the greatest need right now. These other pieces, we will work on generating as much revenue as we can to stay competitive and create the best possible student athlete experience. But I think NIL is really kind of the biggest challenge in front of us right now.
Okay, and then do you have a picture of the financial implications? So this year, it changed from a pay-per-view model towards, everyone was able to just kind of absorb it, which is, especially on the neighbor islands, fantastic. We're very happy. Do you know what the financial implications are from that?
So we don't know the sole picture because we are being supported by the Mountain West Conference's TV deal as well, but I think it will be about $200,000 is the cost overall.
That's the net, counting lost pay-per-view revenue.
To us.
I got you. Okay. Members, additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you. Just as a quick announcement, because I forgot that it's yesterday, tomorrow, or actually not tomorrow, January 8th, 9 a.m., here we'll have economic outlook and the financial plan from the administration. And then 1 p.m. we'll have DLIR and DHHL. Thank you.